hope no one came hoping that this would be like a introduction or a talk about Annie Lennox and the Eurythmics. If we have time at the end, I do have an anecdote to share with you all. Just full transparency, this is very much a work in progress. So my plan for this is to tell you what I've got so far and then open it up to discussion and questions in the last slide, and hopefully you all have something to say, or you can answer some questions that I actually have. It's taken me a long while to be able to simply state what it is that I'm interested in research. But it's essentially why seemingly healthy and easy behaviours are so hard for people to do. Think about sleep. We all need about 7 or 8 hours a night, yet would it surprise you to know that 40% of Australians don't get that recommended amount? Sleep, like physical activity and healthy eating, is a part of the trifecta of health behaviours, meaning it significantly contributes to our well-being. In some recent research by Australian researchers, they found it's not that Australians don't know how much sleep to get, it's that their behaviour doesn't match their attitudes. It doesn't seem very rational from an economic perspective, does it? The motivation from this study really came from a previous study that we conducted where we looked at alcohol consumption, physical activity, smoking, physical activity, and sleep. And what we found was that sleep was across all stages of the life course for women, sleep was the major predictor of poor mental health. So we thought, what's in that? Why isn't there more in the research space to do with sleep, considering it's so vital for our overall well-being? It says theoretical model at the top. It's a bit messy, guys, I apologise, but I sort of had to get it onto a page so perhaps you could see how I got to this spot. So we collected data looking at people's values, 22 items of value, and choices people make reflect their values. And values, both pre-consumption, post-consumption, are a good way of gauging someone's satisfaction towards the behaviour. A new way of looking at value is also looking at the performance of doing it, and that's the scale that we use. In economics, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Like, I was sure personally, values and preferences, kind of the same thing, okay? Trials and tribulations of doing interdisciplinary research. I had to find a reference. And what we found was that values and preferences can be used together as long as the value is in a behaviour that is frequently done. So I think it's Fishkoff's continuum of values, and he says that, or they say that behaviours that are done with frequency, you can assume that the person is able to report a stable preference of that. So they're the independent variables. When we look at the dependent variable, again, I've tried to take an economics lens on this consumer choice decision of sleeping or not sleeping. And I was really interested in this idea of utility and decision utility. So to measure that, we used the data of how much people self-report that they sleep as an outcome behaviour, as a measure of their utility, and we thought, well, we can look at the preferences from the value in the outcome of their behaviour. So the two big things from the literature that I've got so far is that because sleep is a frequently done behaviour, we can suppose the value from the participants is a stable reflection of their preference. And we can suppose that a person's decision utility, that is to sleep, can be explored by their preferences towards their behaviour. To do this, we ran multiple specifications using a multinomial logistic regression. Now that's important because we had 3 categories of sleep: inadequate, adequate, getting enough, or getting too much, which also comes with some health complications. We can see there in the sample size that there's 2 peaks, but the mean is about 49 years old. As I said, there was 5 different types of value, 5 constructs of value that we looked at: emotional value, social value, economic value, health value, and functional value. We also looked at age, income, education, and employment, just to get an idea, a whole view of who these people were. And what we felt, just before we go any further, we wanted to make sure that life satisfaction and mental health effect was still occurring with sleep, and It's a bit messy, perhaps someone can talk to me about this afterwards. It's a bit messy, but we did find that there is still that relationship occurring in this different data set. So what I'm going to show to you is just a comparison between too little sleep and too much sleep. And it really fascinated me. So for those who self-report getting too little sleep, money is more likely to be a predictor of that choice. This group, in comparison to those who get enough sleep, find that it's less easily done. It's less associated with a health-conscious lifestyle, but more associated with agreeableness. In comparison to those who get too much sleep, or self-report getting over 9 to 10 hours sleep, is that this group find that it is actually easy to do, but they find that they have less control over it. It's not something that they're particularly proud of, but they do report in terms of their personality characteristics, higher emotional stability, higher conscientiousness, and really interesting, they're more likely to be younger. So when we're looking at those variables, money is obviously a part of the economic valuation, easily done, control are a part of functional value, emotional stability, conscientiousness, agreeableness are a part of our personality variables, and age is obviously a socio-demographic component. So coming back, and this is where I want to ask you to participate with me. I'm going to start first. I've got some discussion points that I'd like to talk with you. Elephant in the room, it's not a stated preference study. I get that. We didn't ask people to rank one choice over the other. We didn't then ask them, well, how much would they be willing to trade in order to achieve their decision utility of sleep. But I think that it's a really interesting way of looking at preferences. I'm not saying we need to write policy that matches like, oh, you feel like you need to earn some more money, you should get some more sleep. Not that. But I think it's a really interesting way of looking at it is a consumer choice to sleep. I mean, the economics literature on sleeping behaviour does look at it as this time to trade behaviour, okay? So for one, I can't remember the author, my apologies, but for one additional hour at work, it costs between 7 to 10 minutes of sleep. So you can make that trade-off for the economic value. Also, we know in terms of time trade data that to work more leads, at least in the 90s when this paper was written, leads to higher possibility of a better paying job, which means you are hopefully better off economically, meaning that you can buy more goods and services. So there is really that economic argument behind trading between sleep and what is required. But I suppose my interest in this is looking at, I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to open up to you. I'm interested in like this busyness in behaviour attitude that we have. And that is when we look at the agreeableness and too little sleep, personality is a function of coping. So perhaps what we're seeing here is that personality is a function of their sleep choices. I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think there's something in there? What could we do to strengthen this? Who knows how to write a utility function? Okay, is there any questions? Like I said, it is a work in progress. I am eager to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, we'll talk about analytics. No, I'll keep talking then. So when we're talking about the function of sleep, think about it. I had to teach my children to sleep. It was awful. It was 5 years of sleep deprivation. It was just the worst experience. But I wonder, it is really that learned behaviour, even though it is something innate. What occurs for us that means that it is still something that we value as a function of our well-being, but we find it, beg your pardon, hard to do? And I'm really policy-wise, I'm sort of in odds with it, because I think where it's not a behaviour you want to nudge, like the government in bed with you, we've got enough of that already. But when we teach our children to sleep, if we have difficulty with it, then we take them to sleep school and we're trained to show the function of the behaviour. So maybe this is something that we need to look at in terms of adults' behaviour as well. Like, is it really, if this is what contributes to their wellbeing, perhaps we need to consider more about their preferences and think about how we can include that in the discussion of policy. I got to go. Have a happy conference. See you later.